Hello, everybody. I'm very fortunate to be in the position to interview a incredibly talented ultra runner who's currently conquering mountains, Joseph Gray, who later this month will be inducted in the Hall of Fame for the National Black Marathon Association as part of the 2024 Oakland Marathon weekend. Joseph, welcome. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for an introduction and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So, man, I've been looking forward to this interview for a while, so I'm rolling up the sleeves and just tell us a little bit about your origin story, running, why running, and um, why the love of ultra distances and currently marathons. And we'll kind of, take the conversation from there.
Yeah, it was kind of an escape for me. I was more of into basketball and stuff like that, and my PE coach, he saw that I had some talent, and he also saw that I was kind of getting into trouble, hanging out with the troublemakers, and he introduced me to long distance running, had me run the mile, and I just kind of naturally fell in love with it. And I was pretty solid at it, from the jump.
What was that
And
for our listeners' perspective? What was that mile time early on when you knew you had some talent, your coach did, just for
um,
perspective?
like in eighth grade, it was like a five flat mile.
Mm,
And then from there, we have cross country in high school. And, running really saved my life because it was something that I started to really get addicted to and really and fell in love with the sport, and it kind of pushed me away from some of the bad stuff I was into, and some of the people that I was hanging out who I probably shouldn't be hanging out with. You just don't have time to hang out with them because the sport requires so much work, and you have to change your work ethic and your lifestyle if you want to succeed at it. And so it naturally just kind of pulled me into a more positive direction in life. And yeah, it was a life
all right.
changer.
The rest is history. By the way, where did you grow up?
I where I where I fell in love with running was in Washington State, in Tacoma, um, Lakewood, Tacoma area, where my dad, he had gotten stationed in Fort, I guess it's called Lewis McChord now, but that's where he retired, and we stayed out that way, and yeah, man, that was home
Yeah,
for
military brat.
middle school, high school, a couple years elementary school as well. Yeah, military
Good.
brat.
Yep, yep. Myself, yeah. Father's retired Army. So, yep. Well, that's good. How sports, the sense of competition, what you put into something, you get out of it, and being rewarded. So, let's continue the story on your love of running and how it progressed from track, cross country to winning regional and national championships, Joseph.
Yeah, I went from, yeah, I think I made my first national team, junior Pan Am team in, I think I was a freshman in college. And, I got second. That was my first time getting like second at nationals. And then, you know, you're a big fish in a small pond for the age group type stuff. And then when you're no longer a junior, you're back in the big pond. And so it was very humbling when you are now competing with guys who are seniors, have 3, 4 years of experience over you, and they're just pummeling you, just spanking you. And but it was I think it was very important in terms of my development. Learned a lot of hard lessons, a lot of lessons about ethic, a lot of lessons about fortitude and things like that. And so I stuck with it, and eventually, when I was in my last year of grad school, a friend of mine had introduced me to mountain running, and I went and finished track season, and then 6 days later, went from sea level to 8,000 feet, and tried
Wow.
to make my first mountain running team. And I got humbled there. I was in the lead. I didn't know how to run trails, got lost, caught back up to the pack. But just that type of yo-yo racing against that level of athletes didn't
Mhm.
didn't pan out well for me. And also the altitude, so I had a lot to learn. And I came back um the next year, made my first a national mountain running team, and became the first Black American to do so. And then the next year, I made the team again, and then I won the national mountain running championship in mountain running and became the first Black American to do that as well. So
Out
it
right
was a
there. I'm
sport
just
that
gonna
I
say,
fell in
man,
love with.
I gotta give you your props, man. That is fantastic. First ever, um, not just to make the team, but also, like you said, to come back and to win, and a multiple time national team member, correct?
Yep, yep. So I don't know the exact number, but I've been on other like told my total teams, not just mountain running, is 30 something,
Mm,
and
mm,
my
mm.
my total national titles is like 20 something.
Oh,
So
kind of hear that. So it's giving us props right there, folks. Did you feel, when you're ascending in that elite level competition, and you're looking around, and you're there in the starting corral, on the trail, wherever that starting space is, and how is it not to maybe see yourself represented amongst that group? How did you kind of navigate that, being in some cases the only one of one?
yeah, I mean I think I've always kind of liked adversity. When I played basketball, I kind of thrived off of that negative energy in essence. So it didn't bother me in terms of getting the job done, what I wanted to get done. You weren't going to stop me from going out there and doing what I have been training to do. And so I never let that get in the way, even when people, I've heard people say racist things to me in the midst of a race, and it's like, that's not going to stop what I'm doing right now. You know what I mean? I'm going to finish the job. I'm going to handle business. But I realized, like, as the years went on, it was bigger than just me. I saw, it early on in my career, I was one of the only ones. And then as it progressed, nothing really changed. And so, you know, I realized, like, I have to carry myself a certain way. I have to be competitive in order to inspire that next generation of young Black athletes to maybe try something like this, to look at the sport and see like the opportunities that it can provide, and um, just the experiences it can provide, college scholarships, seeing the world, new languages, new foods, and trying to inspire these kids to chase those types of things, something that's different, something that our community, we don't really put on a pedestal as much as we do, say, team sports like basketball or football. And, it's a space where, young Black athletes can excel as well, and just trying to expose them to that new ideals. And I knew that it started with me. I needed to make sure I'm handling myself in a professional manner, um, on the trail and off the trail, and making sure I'm being competitive and I'm showing up and I'm ready to compete, because I know that that next generation, they're looking for winners, in essence, people who are competitive. And I didn't want to be like the social influencer type of athlete. Those, when I was a kid, that wasn't something kids of my generation were inspired by. We wanted the Michael Jordans, the Kareems, the Magics, and we wanted to see guys who were getting it done. And so I realized I had to hold myself to that same standard in mountain running.
Outstanding. Who were some of your mentors, who you were able to go to for guidance, who helped hold you accountable? Maybe if there were moments, maybe where you started to, it doesn't sound like you were lacking any confidence, but sometimes in competitive sports, we are our mental toughness can be challenged, and it can question us at times. Do we want to continue on? You've
Mhm.
been able to sustain competitive level for many years and realize some success. But who were some people in your life, from coaching, family, etc., that have been mentors, pivotal mentors of yours?
Uh, Man, there's a couple, man. My father was a big one for me. He wouldn't let me, bragging wasn't something that we did in my household. I couldn't come home and be like, man, I crushed him, I won. Having a big head wasn't going to go over well in my household. And also, when you lost, right, you're not going to get a whole bunch of sympathy. You lost, it's over, get back to work, get over it. It's kind of those kind of things. And Mark Brinkhouse was the guy who kind of introduced me to distance running early in life. And another guy that I would go to sometimes when I was struggling with the sport. And um, my high school coach, Joe Clark, and Dick Weiss at Oklahoma State. I had a lot of good people that I could bounce ideas off of, and people that held me accountable and made me work hard. And like they didn't let they. I always wanted a coach. Like when I went to college, I knew I needed a coach who was going to be like my dad and be stern and not let me slack off or not be focused. And Dick was really good about that. Also Dave Smith as well. I learned a lot from Dave about just like consistency, showing up and getting the work done, making sure you're focused on that, on your to perfect your craft. And they held me accountable. They made sure I was focused. They didn't let me slack off. And even when I was slacking off, I knew when I was doing wrong, just holding myself accountable as well because they had held me accountable. So yeah, man, I was blessed with a lot of intelligent people in the sport, people with life experience, people with experience in the sport at an elite level as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that insight. Valuable. What advice would you give a aspiring ultra runner, someone who's looking to transition from road, maybe shorter distances, 5K, 10K, um, on some skills, work ethic to make that leap?
Um, it's not as difficult as I think people make it seem. A lot of it is just like nutrition, right? Like play with your nutrition. Try to dial in your nutrition and training because it's difficult to kind of you're running 3 miles a day, your body never really gets into the point where you're in a deficit or where you need fuel, and then you show up and say, I'm gonna go run, 50-mile race. And this is the first time I've ever used fuel. And it's like, even if you are only running 3 miles a day, you could still do a 50 miler, but you do need to get your stomach ready to handle fuel. So a lot of people don't realize like that is probably the biggest hurdle to get over when you start running long distances. It's not so much the talent or the speed and things like that. It's a lot of it is just like how well your body can handle nutrition and keep you feeling good for as long as possible before you are depleted or kind of bonk. And almost every runner has experienced bonk and um, potentially even worse in longer races if you haven't played with nutrition and fuel and you have a lot longer to go and you bonk and you still got, a long time to be running, that can be very tough on you mentally. So, another tip I would say is to kind of move up slowly. There's no rush for you to jump into something that you're not ready for or something that uh, is just too far for you right now. You have to be realistic with yourself. A lot of people don't want to be realistic with where they are. You don't just wake up as a champion with no training and no consistency of putting in the work. You have to put in that work first, no matter who you are. I don't care if you are a 2:05 marathoner. When they're out of shape, they're not going to show up at a race and say, I'm a 2:05 marathoner. You have to be realistic.
Yeah, excellent advice. All of our listeners, I mean, heed that advice, especially for those of us that are participating in the Oakland Marathon race weekend. Again, happening, let's see, the 15th through the Expo 15th, 16th,
Yeah.
5K, 10K, half marathon, kids fun run. And if you do not fuel properly, it's going to impede your performance. It's going to impact it in some way. Now, you may be able to get it away to a degree if you're running, 5K easy pace, chasing finish line versus finish time. But as Joseph clearly stated, the importance of fueling properly for the given distance and not just taking it for granted can be a game changer. So we look forward to everyone. Still time to sign up for race weekend and the opportunity to congratulate and potentially meet Joseph as he'll be accepting an award, right? On Saturday, the 16th of this month in Oakland, California. Honored and recognized. Why don't you share a little bit on one on how you were notified, and then yeah, a little bit more on that Hall of Fame pending induction.
Yeah, I believe I'm trying to remember who it was that sent me the first email. I can't even remember, man. I'll be honest with you, it's been kind of a whirlwind because there
Yeah, I can
are
imagine.
I have to attend three different induction ceremonies in the next like 2 months. And so I'm not even gonna lie to you and try to give you names because
Oh,
I
sure.
might give you
Yeah.
the name for someone else for, but I know it was an email and obviously I was pumped about it because um making history for the sport, that is a step in it, and it's important. Like I said, one of my biggest aspirations is to inspire that next generation. I know when I was a kid, we had the encyclopedia. I used to read about, you know, people who did great things, achieved great things in the past, hundreds of years before I was born, and they still inspire me today. And so I know that me etching my name in this induction ceremony is going to inspire another kid who maybe looks just like me or maybe had a lifestyle similar to mine, and he might say, well, he did it, I could probably do it too. And that'll make me happy if it's only one kid.
Yeah, I mean, I love the historical um energy behind all this. Probably was maybe Tony Reed, um, guessing, yeah, the executive director of
Yeah,
National
I know. Yeah, it
Marathon
definitely Tony.
Association.
Yeah, it was Tony. Yeah, I think it was Tony the first time that I heard about it, being inducted. But I felt like there was someone else too that
Mm.
said something. But yeah, Tony was probably the first one.
Yeah, and I mean, legends on top of legends. Tony, in his own right, marathon. I
Yep.
don't know, all seven continents, run a marathon in all 50 states. Probably over 200 plus marathons completed, and still at it. A
Yeah.
pillar of strength in the running community overall, and especially being a trailblazer, pun intended, in the African American running space. So, let's see here. Family man?
Yeah. Yep. I married my wife was I knew her since I think I was a junior in high school when we met, and so kind of like a high school sweetheart. And we have two beautiful children now, and girl and a boy. And so yeah, man, it gives you a whole nother outlook on life and new motivations. You want to inspire them as well. So uh, you want them to see hard work. You want them to understand things are not easy. You're not just going to get easy, accolades in life without putting in the work. So you're trying to make sure I give them that example, and enjoying every day with them, and just celebrated my daughter's birthday last night. So
Oh,
yeah, man,
congratulations, man.
yeah, I'm
Congratulations.
all
That's
the way in it
beautiful.
right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I just got back from not that our listeners want to hear this, but we were two proud fathers who love talking about our children. They said, "Hey, Pops, want you this past weekend, block your calendar, pack a bag." And they surprised us with a trip to Arizona. We went to spring training, and from there, did some hiking, went to Joshua Tree, road
Nice.
trip, drove from Phoenix to Palm Springs, and everything from start to finish. Lots of laughs, just conversations, and for the girls that wanted to get out, with their hokas on, and did some hiking in Joshua Tree. Man, I couldn't be happier. So those memories that last a lifetime, and have an active and supportive family, as you know all too well, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you are getting inducted in the Hall of Fame, the missus should be right there because it
100%.
takes a family, it takes a village, and someone that's understanding all the training that you have been doing, time with family and being understanding. Can you speak to that in relation to finding balance as a competitive elite athlete, and
Yeah.
family? Yeah.
You know, it there are a lot of athletes I think that don't prioritize the family side of it because it is a very selfish sport, right? If you're training really hard, you are tired. Um, you get hungry quickly. You know, there's going to be days where you're stiff or you don't feel like doing extra things. Um, and I've had a fairly long career. My wife supported me through it all. When she told me she was pregnant, I knew at that moment. I'm a big believer. I was a sociologist. That was like my what my BA was in, and criminologist. And so, one of the big issues that hurt the family unit is, especially you see today, is the father not being involved uh, in his children's lives. So I knew at that moment when my wife said she was pregnant, I said, there's going to be things I'm going to have to sacrifice with my own running career. I want to be selfish. I want to be, and I feel like I have, and my wife has been there to support me, and she still is to this day. But I knew when I had children, those days where I'm feeling stiff or I'm tired, if my kid says, "Hey, Daddy, I want to go do this or that," and there's times now my son is fast now, it's tough, right? Like when he was little, he'd be like, "Daddy, let's race," and I could trot and beat him. Now you get a little older, after a long Sunday long run, and now he's fast. It's like, dang, I got to warm up to beat my son in a race.
Right.
But for me, that it's all worth it
Yeah.
because for me, family is number one. My sport will come and go, my name will come and go, the money will come and go, but my impact on my children's life, that's going to be here when I'm gone. And I want to make sure that I'm there for my children, and they have my time and my wife as well. And so I prioritize that. And it works out really well for me. I still am able to get the rest that I need, I feel like. Um, but I think you have to prioritize that. You have to put that energy into your family because that's something that is more important than your sport.
Yeah. Powerful. That's yeah, and you're right. I see that as a running coach where well-intended athletes are struggling to find the balance, and if you have too much focus in one area, it impacts the other. So,
Right.
hats off to you, Joseph, and prioritizing family and then making those sacrifices. And, it takes sacrifice. I'm getting up early,
Hmm.
and not going to sleep in because if I sleep in, it means that it impacts family time. So maybe that's the alarm going off at 3:30 in the morning and getting out by 4. And for you going on a long run doesn't mean a little shakeout of 3, 4, 5 miles. I mean, it's easy. I mean, what is a for our listeners? What is a typical week of training for you, depending on what you have on the horizon?
Like I think once I'm in shape and we've kind of gone through kind of that base phase, typically we'll have like 2 workouts a week and a long run. And there's obviously some variation that sometimes you wake up the day of a workout and maybe the body doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
or maybe you're a little banged up. And so I'm a big believer in taking days off. I'm not like a run streak guy. I've done some coaching and I completely push athletes away from that mindset. That's I try to let them know that's not beneficial to the end result. If you want to be a streaker, then be a streaker. But if you want to accomplish the best of the God-given talent that you have inside of you, then you're going to have to be smart. You can't just chase things just for chasing them, for the sake of saying that you've done it. And so,
Real
um,
talk, for
I'm
sure.
a big believer in making sure you have those rest days, and also when you take breaks, just making sure you take a step away from the sport and give yourself a mental break. Because like I know runners who will be on running websites 24/7 when they're running and also when they're not running. And I think it's very unhealthy, right? Because say if you're injured or and depression kind of sets in, right? When you're competing and that's their livelihood and you're injured, and I've been there multiple times in my career, there's a level of depression. And I think even for recreational athletes as well, like it's tough to not be able to run or have that outlet. And so when you are just focused on like social media and seeing everyone posting the best of their lives and the best of their training and things like that, it'll kind of sink you even lower. So for me, I'm always, when I'm on my break, or if I'm not running or I'm injured, I try not to be focused on just running. I try to give myself a mental reset, a mental break, and I push that on athletes a lot. I think it's very important. Like the mentality of our sport. Like it's a tough sport. You are having to press aerobically, anaerobically, and it's a big toll on your adrenal glands, on your mental attitude, your how you might act or behave in life. And so you have to make sure that you have that mental break as well as a physical break here and there.
Yeah. again, great insight. Great advice. Rest, super important. Is, runners can we can run
Very.
ourselves into the ground. And, I had to catch myself this past weekend, Joseph. It was down, in Arizona, and admittedly, I did go to look on the browser, local races, and then I'm like, stop, no, okay. It's family first. It's plenty of time to run. There's plenty of time to race. Racing the weekend of the 16th and 17th in Oakland, California.
Right.
Again, 5K, 10K half marathon and marathon. As part of the Oakland Marathon event by Run Local. Um, so yeah, you pick your moments, and there are times when if you want to run your best, then you want to put your best foot forward in the midst of your training. And sometimes streaking is not the best way. Running every day is not the best way, and
Right.
the body recovers most when it's resting. So, and thank you for sharing that with um, our viewers. Can you share a memorable moment? You have many, winning multiple races, being on multiple national teams. But is there a moment or two that particularly stands out to you in your storied career, Joseph?
It was funny. I'm sure some people have probably come across this, but Google Photos does like this thing where it'll send you like memories and old. Yeah, have you know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah, I do.
it just does it by itself. It's really cool. I didn't appreciate it before, but I do now. Um, I it was about around the time my son was born. I stepped in a hole on the mountain. There's like a kind of this divot and I just stepped in it and it messed up my pubic symphysis. And so I'm kind of injured. I run a race. I'm banged up. That race goes horrible. Travel across the world to go do this race, and it was very bad moment for me. And then on top of that, the next year, I'm starting it off injured basically, and I'm on this long hiatus. I start running again, spending a lot more time with my son, and just trying to keep my mind off of the fact that I'm depressed or I'm not running and I'm injured. And I remember later that year. There's two parts to it. So before I started my training and it was like some months into the year, and I needed to make the national team, right? So because I wanted to go to the World Championships. A couple months before that, there was a picture, and I believe my wife took it, and I didn't even know that she had taken it at the time. And my son, I was kind of sitting there, and I remember I was sitting on the stair in my house, and just like before training, and I was just like again looking at training, and it was just putting me in a hole, and I was just thinking like, man, I'm so far behind where I feel like I need to be to make this team, and like I have like a month to get in shape. And my son comes up behind me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he looks down and to see what I'm looking at. But from my perspective of the photo my wife took, it looked like he was like a father to a son, but it was my son to
Oh
me.
man, it's precious.
And
Yeah, powerful.
I saw this photo some months after that, and just like maybe a couple months before the World Championships, I did end up making the team, and I won nationals surprisingly, and that was fine and dandy. But then the World Championships were on the horizon, and I had won Worlds just 3 years prior. And coming into this one, it was probably I've been on the World Mountain Running team at this point over a decade
Right.
straight, and a number of national titles, and I had a world title under my belt. Coming into this one, it was the lowest confidence that I had ever had in a race in my career, and I'm coming into this race, and yeah, I'm a couple days before the race. Like every night, I'm looking at this photo of my son and I, and on the horizon, they said there was bad weather coming in, and I remember it just kind of uplifted my spirits because I was like, I thrive in bad weather and when other people probably, typically struggle with it. Sure enough, the storm hits while we're racing, and I'm able to win my second world mountain running title. And that whole sequence of events in that year is something that I don't know. It's like forever ingrained in my mind. And a lot of times I look at my son, even when he's doing something where he deserves a spanking. Um, and it'll put a smile on my face, even in the midst of being upset with him, just because like even it makes me emotional sometimes when I think about it because of how impactful that was. And I don't know if he knew what he was doing or but it was comforting for me, and I think I needed it in that moment, and I didn't even know it.
And that is wow, powerful. And the ebb and flow of confidence. Sometimes the mind moves the body, but when you have a deep rooted source of motivation, like family, and when we have those visual reminders can help us put things in perspective, can keep us grounded. And like you mentioned earlier on in our conversation, Joseph, you thrive in adversity. Let's mix it
Mm,
up. Okay, you got weather, you got a lot of vert. Okay, let's roll up the sleeves. I can do this. I'm ready. So,
yeah.
and your performance, all the respect to you, man. Hats off. Um, are there any other um closing remarks you'd like to share as bits of advice as a accomplished runner, also as a coach? You know, um,
I can't think any off the top of my head, but like what I already said, I feel like those are very important components
yeah,
of longevity and also of success, I think, in our sport that are underrated, underappreciated. People don't talk about it as much. They don't focus on those things as much. The rest and the recovery.
yeah. Well said. And it is an honor to have this conversation with you and being able to shake your hand in a couple of weeks in Oakland,
Yeah.
California, a city that for me is a very special place of mine. It's where my running club was founded, so to speak. My first timed event as a later in life runner, run club to legit fitness. A lot of ties to the East Bay. I used to manage assistant manager of a hotel out there, actually where the Hall of Fame ceremony is being hosted at the Oakland Marriott. I worked for that organization for a long time. Not to make this about me, but that particular city, with its rich history, and sometimes gets a bad rap, um, undeserved. And for a wellness event that's going to be a weekend full of family, fun,
Hmm.
fitness, and being able to recognize some titans in the running industry and the African American running history. We couldn't be prouder of you, Joseph. Thank you for your time, and looking forward to meeting you. And when is your next race? What are we training
Um,
for?
right now, I mean, I'm training the mountain running season. I'm planning to open that up here in the next month or so, month and a half. And but I'll probably do a couple, road races in the meantime while the ice is melting. And
Oh, I
but
like
yeah, I
that
haven't
analogy.
haven't dialed down 100% yet, but I'll definitely be doing some fast stuff.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again for your time, continued success in health and wellness. And for anyone who was contemplating, can I get out and have some fun? Yes, you can. Come join us in Oakland. Again, the let's see, St. Patrick's weekend expo starts on the 15th. Race distances for all fitness levels. Steph and Aisha Curry's charity will be benefactors of your registration. So if you come out and run a pace that works best for you, run the distance that works best for you, it all goes for a wonderful cause supporting the East Bay community. Thank you again, Joseph, and
Thank you.
best of luck to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, so I'll go ahead and stop the recording here.